Welcome to NTD News. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at today's top stories. The Northeast wakes up to a thick snow blanket and strong winds. The powerful winter storm is closing schools, subways, and virus testing centers. GOP senators are set to meet with President Biden. They're offering a virus aid bill with targeted relief. Trump adjusts the team of lawyers set to represent him during his impeachment trial. 2 new lawyers are now on board to take lead of the team. A major winter storm is dumping snow on the Northeast. The inclement weather means a snow day for students and is halting pandemic-related service in its tracks. A foot or more of snow is expected for many states, from Pennsylvania through New England. Forecasters say the storm is a slow mover, meaning the heavy downfall and strong winds will persist through Tuesday. In New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio imposed restrictions on non-essential travel starting at 6 a.m. Eastern on Monday. The MTA is also advising commuters to avoid unnecessary subway and bus travel and says service may be adjusted. Many vaccine appointments were rescheduled at state-run sites across New York. Vaccinations and testing have also been suspended at New York City public hospitals and health centers. Snowfall rates could reach 2 to 4 inches per hour during the storm's peak. According to the National Weather Service, that puts it on track to become the first winter storm to dump more than a foot of snow on the country's most populous city since 2016. Across the Hudson, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy declared a state of emergency on Sunday, suspending all public transportation for Monday. Snowplows are now out in full force, salting the New Jersey Turnpike. All 6 vaccine megasites in New Jersey also shuttered on Monday, and even Washington, D.C. residents are seeing snow. The National Weather Service issued a winter storm warning for the city. Despite quiet streets, some joggers and cyclists were still spotted out and about as the snow came down. Forecasters are predicting between 4 and 8 inches. And just in, New York City's LaGuardia Airport is suspending all flights for now, a precaution for the worsening weather. GOP senators will pitch their own pandemic relief proposal to the president. They'll meet with President Biden this afternoon at the White House.
President Biden's invited 10 Republican senators to meet with him Monday afternoon. It's to hear their views on the virus relief deal and receive the senators' own proposal. Biden says he wants their support, but a deal has to pass. No ifs, ands, or buts.
I support passing COVID relief with support from Republicans if we can get it, but the COVID relief has to pass.
The senators requested an opportunity to discuss the path forward on the nation's 6th pandemic relief package. Senator Rob Portman speaking on Sunday.
It's true that this morning we sent out a letter to the president saying we would love to work with him. It's signed by 10 Republicans.
They say their proposal builds on previous relief bills that received bipartisan support.
It specifies the proposal that we think is more targeted and more appropriate for the times we're in. And my hope is the president will meet with us and we'll be able to work out something that is bipartisan. We've done it 5 times,
The senators say their proposal is targeted to those who need it most. The director of the National Economic Council says Biden's team are open to input and constructive ideas from anywhere.
But the president is uncompromising when it comes to the speed that we need to act at to address this crisis.
On Fox News Sunday, one of the lawmakers, Senator Bill Cassidy, said the proposal is about $600 billion, around 1/3 of Biden's $1.9 trillion package. They say it includes economic relief for Americans who make under a certain amount, including their dependent children and adults. It also has enhanced federal unemployment payments at the current level and nutrition assistance for struggling families, among other measures. The letter notes billions of dollars remain unspent from the previous COVID relief packages, including from the CARES Act passed last March, which also has yet to be exhausted. And there is some bipartisan pushback against Biden's nearly $2 trillion proposal. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia said earlier this month he'd prefer stimulus checks be sent to those with the highest need. He says he's frustrated with Vice President Kamala Harris, who went to his home state this weekend to promote Biden's proposal. He says no one contacted him beforehand and that's not a way of working together. Senator Bernie Sanders says he thinks Democrats already have the votes to pass the bill without bipartisan support.
To carry on a protest from 2008, New Yorkers held a day-long Reoccupy Wall Street protest this weekend. The organizer tells NTD they want to show their frustration with trading apps like Robinhood, restricting individual investors from buying stocks like GameStop. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
This extremely cold day here in New York City didn't stop these New Yorkers from coming out and protesting on Wall Street. They're calling for a fair playing field in the stock market for both big hedge funds and corporations, as well as just everyday people buying stock.
The hedge funds are the riskiest of the risk takers in Wall Street. There's no doubt about it. They borrow money and then they short a stock that they may have originally sold you.
Our contention would be that this is not what these guys are saying. It's not a free market. It's not a level playing field. It's very much rigged. And I think most people agree with that, so we're trying to build off of that.
He's referring to the firms like Robinhood, who have stopped individual investors from buying stock from GameStop.
Whether or not this hurts the little guy, it's up to the little guy to enter the market at its own risk and play the game just like everybody else.
However, Robinhood said they had to restrict the stock purchases to comply with government financial requirements. There were just so many people buying the stock, the price soared from $17 to over $300.
They're buying puts and calls, which are highly risky instruments. So that means for every dollar you put in, the amount of risk you have is much higher.
While some agree stock trading apps shouldn't get in the way of the small investors purchasing stock, they offer a warning of caution.
Less sophisticated investors aren't sure whether or not to hold or dump, and eventually these stocks are going to go back down. They're not valued at what they're trading at.
And that seems to be playing out now. GameStop is down over 20% as of 11:15 a.m. Monday morning. That means if you invested $10,000 at the peak, it's now worth less than $8,000. And some say individual investors should be cautious about the money behind the platform where the stock frenzy started.
And Reddit has a big investment from Tencent. So some of your viewers might know that Tencent is a Chinese company.
As of Monday, the investors are still restricted from buying the hot stocks. Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Financial services company Citadel is once again in the middle of a Wall Street bets drama. This time, it's over silver.
On Sunday, several major dealers reported silver shortages. It's become a popular target for small investors who want to hurt hedge funds like Citadel. The CEO of SD Bullion said on Friday alone it sold nearly 10 times the amount of silver it normally does in a whole weekend. He said they can normally find at least one supplier if they go over, but this time everyone was afraid of a gap up at Sunday night market open. Last week, some of Reddit's Wall Street Bets forums tried to target silver and carry out what one user called the biggest short squeeze in the world. But now others are pleading to avoid the trade because it might benefit Citadel. On Sunday, one user wrote, "Citadel is the 5th largest owner of silver. It's imperative we do not squeeze it." But either way, one expert told Bloomberg that Reddit users would have a hard time making an impact in the silver market. John Feeney said, "Silver's market cap is too large and those on the forums typically want to see quick gains, so I wouldn't read into it too much." But stockbroker Peter Schiff says Reddit users are getting smarter. He said silver stocks are actually cheap and represent good investment value. The fact that some investors were foolish enough to short these stocks makes their trade even better.
Former President Trump names the 2 new lead attorneys to defend him in the impeachment trial. The news comes after the departure of an earlier group.
The 2 lawyers who will represent President Trump in the Senate trial are David Schoen and Bruce Castor Jr. Schoen is an attorney from Alabama, and Castor is a former prosecutor in Pennsylvania. This comes a day after media reports said an earlier group of attorneys from South Carolina had left the defense. They cited anonymous sources. The report said that there had been a difference of opinion on the strategy for defense. The new team has about 1 week to prepare. Opening arguments are scheduled for the week beginning February 8th. The Democrat-controlled House voted 232 to 197 to impeach Trump on a single article of impeachment. It alleges that the president incited an insurrection that caused the U.S. Capitol breach on January 6. The impeachment was completed in a single 7-hour session and has been criticized by Republicans for its speed and lack of due process. Lawyer Castor says the upcoming trial could test the strength of the Constitution.
Former President Trump was just nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, again, this time by an Estonian member of the European Parliament. A member will be awarded in November. Jock Madison explained his reasons for nominating Trump on social media. He mentioned the Middle East peace deals and that Trump is the only U.S. president in the last 30 years who didn't start a war. Last year, Trump was nominated by Norwegian Parliament member Christian Tybring-Gjedde. In an interview with Fox, he cited Trump's efforts to create peace. Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, was also nominated separately for a Nobel Prize. A former Harvard professor nominated him and said Kushner and his associate Avi Berkowitz helped nominate the Middle East Peace Accords. The Trump administration landmark peace deals include Israel, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. New Republican lawmaker Marjorie Greene says she won't back down, and she'll always keep fighting for the people. She's at the center of controversy in Congress after filing articles of impeachment against President Biden.
Newly elected Representative Marjorie Greene of Georgia says she's received a call from former President Trump. She wrote on Twitter, "I had a great call with my all-time favorite POTUS, President Trump," and said she's so grateful for his support. She didn't elaborate further on the details of the call. Democrats are attacking Greene after she filed articles of impeachment against President Biden on his first full day in office. The articles of impeachment concern Biden's alleged actions involving a deal in Ukraine. They also mention alleged abuse of power over Biden's son's dealings with China and Russia. In one of the tweets, Greene wrote that America is facing an enemy within. She described it as a poisonous rot of socialist policies and America Last sellouts. Greene wrote, "Any elected politician that isn't putting America first doesn't deserve their position or the people's trust." House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made similar remarks last week, but she suggested Trump-supporting Congress members like Greene were the enemy within.
President Joe Biden says he's withdrawing a package of spending cuts. It was proposed by former President Donald Trump prior to leaving office. Biden informed House Speaker Nancy Pelosi that he's withdrawing the more than 70 proposals totaling nearly $30 billion in spending cuts. Trump unveiled his spending cut packages less than a week before he was scheduled to leave office. The cuts were to be taken out of the widely criticized omnibus spending bill and the last virus relief package. Trump at the time said he was concerned about Congress's wasteful spending. According to Trump's letter to Congress, he proposed the spending cuts so that more aid can go towards economic stimulus. The cuts would affect 11 departments of the federal government, plus various federal programs. A West Virginia media company is suing Google and Facebook. It says alleged anti-competitive business practices threatened to kill local newspapers across the country. HD Media claims Google illegally exercised monopoly power over the digital advertising market. It says it prevented newspapers from competing, which led to losing their main source of revenue. It says it's not just the freedom of the press at stake, it's the press itself. The company also claims Google and Facebook conspired to engage in anti-competitive conduct through an alleged secret deal. HD Media wants the court to block Google and Facebook from doing this in the future. It's also seeking damages for injuries. President Biden's administration voices alarm over reports of a military coup in Burma. The White House promised to take action if steps aren't taken to reverse the situation. According to Burmese military television, the military is taking control of the country for a year. A local news service reports the nation's top leader and the country's president were both detained. So were members of the ruling party and the regional cabinet. In a statement, the Army said it was responding to election fraud, adding that the military chief was taking power and planned to impose a state of emergency for 12 months. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said in a statement that the U.S. is alarmed by the reports and said the Burmese military has taken steps to undermine the country's democratic transition. And just ahead, NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal is working with Icy Hot to fund school sports programs. He says there's talent out there that isn't getting to compete. Find out more after this short break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal is spearheading an effort to fund high school sports programs. O'Neal and Icy Hot are awarding grants to 23 public high schools whose sports were derailed by the pandemic.
Four-time NBA champion and Hall of Famer Shaquille O'Neal says high school is a critical time for student athletes and that it's unfortunate schools have been forced to cancel their sports seasons.
And that's where it all starts. You don't want a person that has a lot of talent because they don't get to play and say, you know what? I'm not going to do that. What's important is that kids can know and you can understand and know that they still have a sports program. That's the only thing that matters to me.
His Get Game Ready grants were awarded to 23 public schools to meet a wide range of needs: personal protective equipment, uniforms, reusable water bottles, transportation costs, and sports gear.
It'll be amazing if all the schools that we gave grants to win state championships. That's going to be the next thing that I'm going to be focusing on. The schools that we gave programs to, how many of those won state championships?
O'Neal says he wishes he could write a check to every school in America. But since that's not an option, he's calling on his friends for help.
With the collection of my friends, we have well over $1 billion. With the collection of the celebrities I know and all the famous people out there, we have well over $20 billion. So I challenge all my friends to, hey, go out there and pick your school, pick a school, hook them up so they continue their athletic program.
In addition to the funds, the schools will receive guidance from the National Athletic Trainers Association. The organization will help provide safety and prevention best practices.
Military troops offer a sigh of relief for medical staff at an LA hospital. Nearly 200 medical troops are deployed across California, helping overwhelmed hospitals care for virus patients.
It's like watching Superman walk in.
Monica Escobar has been front and center of the pandemic since day one. She says these medical troops are her heroes.
It's a war zone. You come in, you don't know what to expect. You have the doctors rushing, trying to get to patients as soon as they can in a second's call.
That's why 20 military medical troops from a Nevada Air Force base in the U.S. Department of Defense are helping out.
The most challenging part of this mission for me has been the cases that I've worked on where we couldn't get them home for their families, despite our best efforts.
Botch and Escobar have formed a close bond with one another, bonding under the pressure.
And there are days when we're exhausted after so many hours of working, and we see them come in and we don't have to tell them what to do, just kind of guide them and they know how to handle the rest. It's a nice breath of fresh air.
Virus numbers have stabilized in many regions across the state, but Escobar says that's not what they see inside the hospital. Botch and her crew have been there since the beginning of January, and it's not clear when they'll leave. But one thing's for sure, these two will miss each other.
New satellites are headed into outer space. SpaceX launched its 18th Starlink mission on Sunday. It's part of SpaceX founder and chief executive Elon Musk's plans to provide global internet service. Starlink is a constellation made up of thousands of compact, flat-paneled satellites, all interconnected. They're initially placed into a relatively low orbit, just 180 miles above Earth. They're easily visible as a long, strung-out cluster parading through the night sky. Over a few months, Krypton-powered thrusters raise the satellites to a 340-mile orbit. SpaceX may start service later this year in the northern U.S. and Canada, then expand to the world's most populated areas. And coming up, the United Kingdom updates its visa rules. It offers Hong Kong residents the chance to become UK citizens. Find out more when we return.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Hong Kong residents can now apply for a new visa, which paves the way to becoming British citizens. But Beijing says it will no longer recognize the special British passport, even though it's already in use.
Starting on Sunday, Hong Kong residents will be able to apply for a new visa scheme which paves the way for British citizenship. But China says it will no longer recognize the special British passport in question, which has already been in use for years. The British National Overseas Passport, or BNO, is purely a travel and identification document, part of a special status created under UK law in 1987, which specifically targets Hong Kong, a former British colony. Britain's new visa scheme will allow BNO holders to live, study, and work in the country for 5 years and eventually apply for British citizenship. But China hit back at the new program, saying it would no longer recognize the BNO passport as a valid travel or identification document. The UK's visa scheme was first announced last year in response to China's new national security law for Hong Kong. Britain says the law is being used to stifle dissent and breaches the agreement under which the colony was handed back to China in 1997. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he was immensely proud of the new scheme, adding that it honors our history and friendship with the people of Hong Kong and stands up for freedom and autonomy. Britain's foreign ministry said it was disappointed but not surprised by China's swipe at BNO holders. China says the UK's offer of a pathway to citizenship is a violation of international law and interferes with its internal affairs. However, its move to reject BNO passports is largely symbolic. Hong Kong residents normally don't use their BNO passports to travel to mainland China, but it may signal tougher actions from China. The UK's new visa scheme opens the door for an estimated 2.9 million BNO holders and a further 2.3 million eligible dependents to go to Britain.
Facial recognition technology is gaining ground in France's police force, but it has some people and institutions worried. Our France correspondent David Vivez met with an expert who says the situation could soon resemble that in China.
Demonstrators remained on the streets of Paris as darkness fell on January 30th. The city saw yet another day of protests on Saturday, voicing opposition to a controversial security bill. If passed, the law would give security forces more access to surveillance tools, like drones and facial recognition software.
It's like a sci-fi movie. You're going to airport, a machine scans your face and can confirm your passport. This technology was tested 1 year ago by a French company in Kazakhstan. The company is linked with the Minister of the Interior.
Virag says the pandemic paved the way for French authorities to set up their surveillance measures. Virus contact tracing was already in place, but more technology might extend how people are tracked. Virag refers to a book called The Great Reset, written by Klaus Schwab and Thierry Malret. Klaus Schwab is executive chairman of the Davos Economic Forum. His book proposes new theory on what Western countries should be like after the pandemic is under control. He suggests total surveillance of the population for what Schwab calls their own safety.
It's not about tracking you for 1 day or 1 week. It's about how to track you all the time, everywhere. In his book, Klaus Schwab says Western countries should copy China and track people in their daily lives when they're on the streets, etc. We're totally in George Orwell's 1984, saying, in the name of people's protection, they should be constantly monitored.
China already operates a vast surveillance network, with about 20 million cameras installed across the country. Chinese tech companies also dominate the global facial recognition market. Telecom giant Huawei has already equipped 200 cities across the globe with this kind of technology. In France, facial recognition software was used by police, even when it went against EU law. but in November 2020, the State Council approved its use, meaning it will likely be part of new police surveillance tools. Reporting by David Vives, NTD News.
And that's all for now. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. I'm Kevin Hogan.
Hi, we're happy to announce that you can also catch us on cable TV now. Millions of households already choose us as one of their trusted news sources, and you can too. You can watch us in Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, and many other cities as well. And if your system doesn't carry NTD yet, you can just give them a quick call and request NTD on your cable provider. Thank you for watching. See you next time.